Credit card fees eroding your bottom line? PayJunction's integrated smart surcharge solution offers built-in compliance tools, simplified reporting, and thoughtfully designed customer-facing terminals that protect CSI. Some dealers are saving over $130,000 annually per rooftop. See it in action at payjunction.com/auto.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Thursday, October 23rd, 2025. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, the Nexperia chip crisis spreads to Japan. GM unveils a bold plan to bring eyes-off driving to market in 2028. And Tesla's profits slip in the third quarter. Plus, experts talk over the vehicle affordability crisis and what's driving higher prices in the new and used markets.
Prices go up, they won't come down.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. The ripple effects from the Nexperia dispute keep spreading, this time to Japan. The Japan Automobile Manufacturers Association says the country's automakers are bracing for possible serious semiconductor shortages. JAMA's chairman says a Dutch chip maker has warned parts suppliers it can't guarantee future deliveries, a move that could disrupt global production. Nexperia, based in the Netherlands, has been caught in a standoff between Dutch and Chinese authorities over trade restrictions. Toyota, Nissan, and Mitsubishi say they're monitoring the situation and working with suppliers. Subaru says its plants are running normally. Honda says it hasn't suspended any factories so far, but it's watching closely for any ripple effects. Tesla's profit dropped sharply in the third quarter, even as sales surged. Net income fell 37% to about $1.4 billion, while revenue jumped 12% to more than $28 billion. That boost came as U.S. buyers rushed to claim an expiring federal EV tax credit. Tesla delivered a record 497,000 vehicles in the period. Still, margins slipped to 18% from nearly 20% a year ago. The company blamed shifting trade, tariff, and fiscal policies for near-term uncertainty, but said it's focused on long-term growth. And Ford is recalling more than 1.4 million vehicles in the U.S. over a problem with rear-view cameras. NHTSA says the defect can cause the camera image to appear distorted or disappear entirely. It affects a wide range of models. They include certain C-Max, Escape, Explorer, Fusion, Mustang, and several Lincoln vehicles built between 2015 and 2020. Ford says only about 1% of the recalled vehicles are expected to have the issue. As of October 1st, the automaker has linked the defect to 5 accidents but no injuries. And those are today's headlines. You can find more details on all those stories at autonews.com. General Motors says its cars are about to get a lot smarter. By 2028, it says drivers will be able to safely take their eyes off the road and even chat with a built-in AI for restaurant tips or maintenance help. Lindsay Van Hully was at the announcement on Wednesday in New York. She spoke with our own Jake Neer about it from her home office near Lansing, Michigan.
Lindsay Van Hully, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Hi, Jake. Thanks for having me.
All right, so walk us through what GM unveiled yesterday. What are the sort of the basics of this announcement?
Yeah, they had a lot of announcements yesterday. I was in New York for a technology strategy media day. They had reporters there to hear from executives and also see demonstrations of some of the technology that they're launching. They are planning to have conversational AI using a Google Assistant as soon as next year inside vehicles before they actually work on their own custom AI assistant. They are planning to bring eyes off, actually, driver assistance technology in 2028, starting with the Cadillac Escalate IQ. That's the electric version of the Escalade SUV. Right now, their Super Cruise system is hands off. You can take your hands off the wheel, but it still requires you to keep your eyes on the road. So this would be a pretty big step up in what that technology can do. It would have a combination of LiDAR sensors, radar cameras, trains on data from real world driving, also runs simulations to be able to test those sorts of rare situations that don't happen on a regular basis. And that's a part of the effort. When they talked last year about ending the robotaxi business that Cruise had operated, they had said instead they really wanted to focus on prioritizing advanced driver assistance technology, really toward developing a personally autonomous vehicle, because they've talked about that's their core business. Running a robotaxi fleet is not really their core operation. And so they've brought in Cruise's team and the technology and paired it with the team that had been working on Super Cruise, and really trying to kind of pair those two efforts to really enhance and improve what the eyes off technology will do. And really powering all of that, they said, is going to be a new electrical architecture and central computing platform, also expected to arrive in 2028. And that's going to be significantly more powerful, will allow for faster operating, greater ability for over-the-air software updates, very much a simpler platform than what's in the vehicles today. That's going to make that really easier for, connectivity for entertainment, and also just to be able to handle all of the additional AI workload that's expected to be coming with some of these new updates.
Certainly feels like a shot across the bow here from GM. I'm curious what you see as their goals with something like this in terms of where it places them in the market, and also what are the risks involved here?
Yeah, I mean, I think how they see it is sort of there's an opportunity to differentiate. There are not automakers in the U.S. that have technology currently, available that really allows drivers to take their eyes off the wheel at highway speeds, kind of the way that they're envisioning here. And so, to be able to do that, GM has talked about really seeing significant value in a system like that, especially, just how you value time. They've talked about how, if they can safely allow consumers to take their hands off the wheel, their eyes off the road, do other things, work, whatever else that they might want to do, there's convenience there. And there's a lot of value, they say, in really giving consumers that time back. But there's still a lot of risks. This is an untested system. There are a lot of questions, I think, still about liability. What happens if there's an incident when the system is engaged, and how does that get handled? Lots of questions from a regulatory standpoint. And, just that overall question of trust, will consumers trust it? And GM has said, they're going to be very deliberate and incremental with how they scale this. It's going to be on one vehicle at first, highways, before they would expand into like urban driving, for instance. And I think with how they've described it is, we're going to do this safely and incrementally, because if the trust isn't there, then this just doesn't work. That's really how they've described it. So it will be interesting to learn more about it and to kind of see how that's actually going to work and what that deployment ultimately turns out to be.
General Motors is keeping our own Lindsay Van Hully very busy this week. Lindsay, thank you for joining us again on Daily Drive.
Thanks, Jake.
Coming up, experts weigh in on the vehicle affordability crisis and where it's likely headed in the coming years. That's next on Daily Drive.
Automotive News Shift podcast brings you the latest on automotive technology, trends, and transformation. I'm Hannah Lutz.
And I'm Molly Boygon. We're the new co-hosts of Shift, and we're excited to bring you new conversations with experts and industry insiders like this one with Larry Dominique, president of LD Management Consulting.
I do believe the legacy OEMs are falling into a trap. They've got to find a way to, in some ways, build a new airplane while they're still in flight.
Catch Shift, available every Sunday, wherever you get your podcasts.
What if your dealership could save $130,000 per rooftop with one simple switch? Automotive leaders are under constant pressure as labor, parts, and processing costs climb. That's why dealers are turning to PayJunction's Smart Surcharge, a cost-cutting tool built for auto with DMS integration and CSI protection in mind. Smart Surcharge automates many compliance requirements with terminals that display disclosures, automatically exclude debit cards, and integrate with text-to-pay. These features protect CSI by giving customers a clear choice, the convenience of credit or the savings of debit. The impact? One dealership using PayJunction cut its effective card and debit rate by 58%. saving over $130,000 a year per rooftop. And now dealers making the switch to Smart Surcharge can get even more since PayJunction is offering a free month of processing to dealers and shop owners, reimbursing up to $10,000 in processing fees when a qualified auto industry merchant activates Smart Surcharge by visiting payjunction.com/drive savings. For 25 years, PayJunction has built its own payment technology, specifically engineering tools that integrate payments with auto industry management software while providing access to tools designed to enhance the customer experience. Take control of costs, streamline payments, and reinvest your savings with PayJunction to gain a competitive edge for your business. Get your free month at payjunction.com/drive savings today.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. As tariff policies have started taking effect, auto prices have been rising. Since bottoming out at $48,500 in February, average new car prices have marched steadily upward, surpassing $50,000 for the first time in April. That's according to Cloud Theory's average marketed price metric. On Wednesday, our own Hannah Lutz and Paige Hodder hosted an Automotive News Congress Conversations live stream, digging into what's driving those price hikes and where they're headed next. The panel included Jennifer Newman, editor-in-chief at Cars Commerce, Laura Parada, president of the New Jersey Coalition of Automotive Retailers, Melinda Zabritsky, experienced head of Automotive Financial Insights, and Shirley Jones, CFO of CarPro's Automotive Group. Here's a piece of their conversation.
Are we nearing an affordability crash? And what early warning signals should dealers watch out for before affordability crashes in their local markets? Melinda, let's start with you.
Well, I think it's interesting when we talk about words like crash, because you can go back, a handful of years ago and everyone asked me, is $500 the limit on a new car monthly payment? And we soared right through that. But certainly, the affordability issue continues to be out there, and we continue to see consumers respond by moving into older and older vehicles, trying to keep things more affordable. But I don't think we're really looking at a crash, but I think we're looking at consumers who previously might have been new car buyers who are now going to be moving into the used car market just simply because they can't afford to buy a new car.
And what does that mean for the traditional used car buyers? Jenny just told us how high the average used car price is. Where do they go?
Well, that's where we're seeing them shift into older and older vehicles. There's really high demand for late model used cars right now because of the lack of leasing a handful of years ago. That feeds late model used availability. And we increasingly see consumers shift into older and older cars. Just so far this year, over 40% of consumers who bought cars were 9+ model years old. So I think it's just that evolution of consumers moving from new to late model used, those consumers shifting into a mid-year model, and then shifting into older and older.
Shirley, bringing you in from the dealership perspective, what are those customers looking for? Do you have inventory that you're able to offer them to get to that low payment? How are you navigating those conversations?
From the dealership perspective, we are navigating this new world that we're in with affordability of vehicles. We're listening to our customers. We're making sure that we give them transparency with pricing. And yes, sometimes the consumers are leaning back towards those vehicles that are older models, but we're putting them on a pathway of, this is the vehicle you might be purchasing today. We bring them back in. A couple of years later, we're going to transition you from this vehicle to a newer model. So we're giving them a platform to move from from older model to a more current year vehicles.
And Laura, I know that you work with lots of dealers in your state of New Jersey. What is their experience with this, these affordability challenges across the board, across used, new EVs we were just speaking about before the call?
Oh, thank you, Hannah. It is challenging, absolutely. And, when there are incentives from the state, that is helpful. And, it is a challenge as well with the federal EV incentive just going away, the $7,500 at the point of sale there from the federal government. That's challenging. And on top of that, in New Jersey, we have a situation where we have an affordability crisis in the state, not just in the auto space, but our energy prices are skyrocketing. Housing's completely unaffordable. There's article after article where consumers are trying to decide whether to pay for the groceries or pay their electricity bill. And then you're like, and now we want to buy a new car for our family as well. So it's a ripple effect of challenges right now.
Are there certain price segments that are most at risk right now, especially as tariffs take effect? Is like the middle of the market, for example, most at risk? Are you seeing more risk in the upper or lower end? Who wants to start on that one?
I'll jump in.
Jenny?
So yeah, I think absolutely the most at risk is the 30K and under car. Which is which is kind of ironic as we're sitting here talking about affordability. We're seeing that 30K cars and under, the market share is just 13%. And that is down, especially if you look at 2019 before the pandemic, that market share was 38%. So those vehicles that, we're in a sweet spot for people looking for a budget vehicle who might be thinking about used, but perhaps want the extra warranties and the reassurance that comes with buying new. They're really stuck because there's less to buy there. And of course, part of the reason why is because of the tariffs that we're seeing with the current administration. That is impacting the way that automakers are thinking about the mix that they're bringing to dealerships. And a lot of these vehicles are made outside of the US, and that is impacting what's actually being sold here.
You know what, Hannah, can I interject there? What the dealerships are really looking for is for lease returns. And that's how we are able to fill that segment of vehicle inventory here at CarPros through retaining customers, repeat customers that are coming back into the dealership. So we're able to take a lease return that's in that segment of $35 to $40,000 and then have that vehicle available for sale. We have our BMW store as well. In that segment, we have not seen a decline for those consumers who like to purchase luxury vehicles. But going back to the segment of that $35 to $40 market value, we're really relying on our retention of our customers coming back in, repeat customers, trading in those vehicles for us to have vehicles frontline and ready for our consumers to purchase.
Yeah, and I can add on to that because it's when I look at what the most common leased vehicles out there, it's some of those mid-size, smaller CUV SUVs. It's RAV4. It's you still always have the Camry in there, but it's also a lot of big trucks, and lately it's a lot of EVs. I mean, this year was kind of the trough of off-lease vehicles because we're coming in off of 2022. Next year, we're going to pick up some additional, about another million, but also increasingly more of those vehicles coming off lease are going to be EVs. They're 20% of what's leased. So yeah, we're going to start having some more late model used vehicles next year, but the mix is going to be different.
Right. And along with the new EV incentive, the used federal incentive also went away. So that doesn't help the used EV prices either.
Following up with Melinda, besides tariffs, what other factors are increasing monthly payments?
Well, certainly the rate increases didn't help. So rates coming down are certainly going to benefit. But it's also, again, it's just purely the prices going up. You've got every new year comes out, the new models are going to be priced a little bit above the previous year models. Again, on the used vehicle side, it's still very tight inventory. So used values continue to be high. And what I tend to notice in the data is once prices go up, whether it's demand or whether it's tariffs, they don't come down. Even if tariffs go away, we're not going to see those prices come down. On the new side, when we had the dealer markups, the very, very high increases a handful of years ago, inventory recovered, prices didn't come down. So that certainly doesn't help. I think the one thing that does help, though, is on the lender side, we have lenders who are increasingly looking at moving into longer term loans. Some lenders that wouldn't go beyond a 72 are starting to look at 84. We do have some specialty lenders out there who specialize in 95, 96, 100-month loans, which is kind of unfathomable to think of. But, terms certainly help. But like I said, prices go up, they won't come down.
We have a good question from the audience. This is from Matthew. It's directed to Jenny to start. Is there any data on which generation of buyers is driving higher purchase prices, or are higher prices happening really across the board, no matter the age of the buyer?
That's a great question. I think we're seeing higher purchase prices across the board. As Melinda was mentioning, the tightness in the used car market is impacting. It's all connected. New and used are connected. So as new goes up, used goes up, right? We're seeing a little bit less inventory in some of these segments. I think one area that's interesting, and we were talking about the 30K price bucket. One area that we are seeing a little bit of growth is 30K to under 50K. We're seeing automakers be really thoughtful about the way that they're approaching some of their trims and the pricing there. And so for shoppers who are have a little bit of flexibility with their budget, they may be able to find some relief by looking at lower trim levels in that bracket. So that could be an area for shoppers of all ages to spend a little more time doing some research.
I was just looking at purchases by generation, and I think that the answer really is not necessarily generations driving the prices. I think it's what's out there drives what the generations do, as far as whether they buy new, whether they buy used. And looking at new cars, we still have, Gen X is still the largest buying population, but the growth is in millennials. And what I tend to see is, there is that correlation between age and credit. Your more entry level consumers, your Gen Z rather, is new to market. They're growing. They start off, lower credit, less availability to be able to move into a new car. They tend to start with used. And then as they age, they're able to move into more of the new market. And then of those younger generations, I'm increasingly seeing them shift into leasing. And that's what drives those lower price points and those lower payments. So I think it's more of what is out there in the marketplace drives what the different generations do.
Can I add to that real quick?
Sure.
On the leasing front, when you think about Gen Z and even millennials and the way that they have developed as shoppers and consumers, what we've noticed at cars.com is that they start to view vehicles more as a technology. So these are generations that have been raised sort of with the iPhone or their cell phones, and they are used to this technology being updated frequently. And so it's not a big surprise to hear Melinda say that they're leaning into leasing, because they are sort of preconditioned to think about needing their technology to be up to date and newer. So, there's a trend, there's a correlation there as well.
Melinda Zabritsky is head of automotive financial insights at Experian. Jennifer Newman is editor-in-chief at Cars Commerce. Shirley Jones is CFO of CarPros Automotive Group. And Laura Parada is president of the New Jersey Coalition of Automotive Retailers. They spoke with our own Hannah Lutz and Paige Hodder on our Congress Conversations live stream on Wednesday. You can find their full conversation on our LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube pages. That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer, as well as our own Lindsay Van Hully, Hans Greimel, Lawrence Iliff, Riley Hodder, and David Phillips for their reporting for today's podcast. You can get the latest news on vehicle prices, supply chain disruptions, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. Come back tomorrow for a conversation with Alex Snyder and Tom Harsha of Vehicle Life about how dealership service departments can create loyalty with customers.
These customers with over 100,000 miles on their car, they might be seeing $600 and $700 bills every time they come in. So that is having an effect on loyalty. It is driving people to go to their independence.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoy the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.